Sometimes hockey gives us stories you'd never expect. You watch two players on the ice, passing, scoring, and looking like the perfect pair. From the outside, it seems like magic. They're unstoppable best friends chasing the cup. But what if it wasn't true? What if these teammates couldn't stand each other? What if their perfect chemistry hid fights in practice, locker room clashes, or personal grudges off the ice? Can players hate each other and still win? That's what we're exploring today, the NHL duos who dominated on the ice but were at war everywhere else. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more wild hockey stories on Pucknuts. Jeremy Roenick versus Patrick Marleau, the Silent Rift. Jeremy Roenick was a Hall of Famer and one of the NHL's most outspoken stars. In 2007, near the end of his career, he joined the San Jose Sharks for one last shot at the Stanley Cup. The team was stacked, with Joe Thornton, Joe Pavelski, Rob Blake, and longtime captain Patrick Marleau. Marleau had been the face of the Sharks for years, skilled, consistent, and respected. Roenick, brought in for depth, played fewer minutes than the younger stars. The two spent 2 seasons together, both ending in conference final losses. After retiring, Roenick openly criticized Marleau, accusing him of lacking effort and leadership. In his memoir, he even listed Marleau among the 5 players I hated. Roenick said he once visited Marleau at home to talk, but it went nowhere. Marleau defended himself, saying he had given everything to the game and just expressed it differently. This feud showed that even chasing the same dream doesn't always mean harmony. PK Subban versus Brendan Gallagher, personality clash in Montreal. From 2012 to 2016, PK Subban and Brendan Gallagher were both rising stars for the Montreal Canadiens. At first, things seemed fine. They were young, talented, and playing for one of hockey's most historic teams. But by their final season together, tensions were clear. During practices, cameras caught them clashing. They wrestled, chirped at each other constantly, and Subban even knocked Gallagher's helmet off. Teammates had to step in to stop the fights. Subban was fiery, flashy, and outspoken, while Gallagher was more reserved and disciplined. Those differences eventually boiled over. After Subban was traded to Nashville in 2016, the rivalry didn't stop. Their first game against each other turned physical, with Subban dragging Gallagher to the ice and Gallagher responding aggressively. Even years later, Subban continued criticizing Gallagher as a TV analyst. This feud wasn't about one moment. It was a clash of personalities. On the ice, they could play together, but off it, their styles just didn't mix. Elias Pettersson versus JT Miller, Vancouver's modern rift. The Vancouver Canucks had been struggling for years, but their locker room drama hit the spotlight in 2025 with rumors about Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. Pettersson, drafted 5th overall in 2017, was supposed to be the team's future star. For a while, he lived up to the hype, even scoring 102 points in a season. Miller, who joined Vancouver in 2019, surprised everyone by becoming a top offensive player, posting 103 points in 2023-24. The problem? Their personalities clashed. Miller was fiery, outspoken, and wore his emotions on his sleeve. Pettersson was quiet, reserved, and led by example on the ice. Rumors in 2024 suggested Pettersson showed up to training camp out of shape, raising questions about his effort. Interestingly, when Miller briefly left mid-season, Pettersson's game soared, only to dip again when Miller returned. By January 2025, the Canucks traded Miller to the Rangers. The exact details remain private, but it seems clear. Two very different personalities couldn't coexist in the same locker room. Evander Kane versus Dustin Byfuglien, the tracksuit incident. One of the most infamous NHL feuds involved Evander Kane and Dustin Byfuglien on the Winnipeg Jets. Kane was a talented but controversial forward, often criticized for his off-ice behavior. Byfuglien, a veteran leader, had little patience for nonsense. In 2015, their tension exploded. Kane reportedly showed up to a mandatory team meeting wearing clothes that didn't follow the dress code. Some reports said it was a tracksuit, others a jacket and jeans, but either way, Byfuglien didn't let it slide. In a memorable moment, he grabbed Kane's outfit and tossed it into a hot tub at the team facility. For Kane, that was the final straw. Just 5 days later, he was traded to the Buffalo Sabres. Byfuglien later explained the incident like parenting. Rules must be followed. Kane never publicly forgave him. One infamous photo showed Kane patting Byfuglien on the shoulder, while Big Buff gave him the middle finger. A perfect summary of a relationship that never worked. Brind'Amour versus Erik Lindros, Flyers locker room drama. The Philadelphia Flyers of the 1990s were full of talent, but their locker room wasn't always smooth. At the heart of the drama were superstar Erik Lindros and fan favorite Brind'Amour. Brind'Amour was known for his hard work, leadership, and reliability, while Lindros was brash, talented, and often injured. Lindros served as captain, and Brind'Amour was his trusted alternate. Rumors started swirling about a personal betrayal. Some claimed Lindros had an affair with Brind'Amour's wife. Though never confirmed, the story created a huge rift. Some even said a locker room confrontation occurred, with Brind'Amour demanding that either he or Lindros be traded. Ultimately, the Flyers sent Brind'Amour to the Carolina Hurricanes. In hindsight, it was a mistake. Lindros' injuries piled up, while Brind'Amour went on to captain Carolina to a Stanley Cup win. This feud shows how personal conflicts off the ice can shape a team and become one of the NHL's most memorable stories. Alexander Ovechkin versus Evgeny Malkin, a Russian rivalry. Alexander Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin are two of the greatest Russian players in NHL history. Ovechkin, who broke Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record in 2025, and Malkin, a multiple-time Stanley Cup champion, might have been expected to be close friends. At first they were even roommates on the Russian national team after being drafted first and second overall in 2004. But everything changed after a nightclub incident where Ovechkin allegedly punched Malkin's agent. The fallout was intense, and the two didn't speak for 2 full seasons. On the ice, their games were charged with tension, heavy hits, and visible rivalry. Even at award ceremonies, they avoided eye contact. Eventually, Ilya Kovalchuk stepped in and helped them reconcile. By the NHL All-Star Skills Competition, they were on friendlier terms and even teamed up for a playful moment. Their story shows how teammates can go from friendship to conflict and sometimes back again, making their rivalry one of the most fascinating in hockey history. Saku Koivu versus Mike Ribeiro, Montreal's leadership battle. The Montreal Canadiens have always been a team full of history and strong leaders, and Saku Koivu was right at the center of that. As captain, he earned respect for his toughness, humility, and dedication to the game. Then came Mike Ribeiro, a young and talented center making his mark in the early 2000s. Ribeiro was confident, maybe too confident, and believed he deserved a top-line role. That put him directly in conflict with Koivu, the team's established leader. The tension grew until Ribeiro was eventually traded to the Dallas Stars. Even years later, Ribeiro would occasionally criticize Koivu and question his leadership. Koivu, however, stayed calm and never responded to the drama. Fans knew who the real leader was, and to this day, Koivu remains one of the most respected and beloved captains in Montreal Canadiens history. Erik Karlsson versus Mike Hoffman, when feuds turn dark. Some rivalries stay on the ice, but others go way too far. That was the case with Erik Karlsson and Mike Hoffman in Ottawa. Karlsson, one of the top defensemen of his time and captain of the Senators, went through a heartbreaking tragedy in 2018 when he and his wife lost their unborn child. Soon after, Karlsson's wife accused Hoffman's fiancée, Monica Carrick, of sending anonymous hurtful messages online, mocking the loss and threatening their family. Hoffman and Carrick denied the claims, but many of the Senators' wives supported the Karlssons. The situation created tension in the locker room, and soon both players left Ottawa. Even after leaving, the anger continued. Hoffman would try to provoke Karlsson on the ice, looking for fights. Whether the accusations were ever proven or not, the damage was done. This feud is one of the darkest in modern NHL history. Gary Leeman versus Al Iafrate, the Maple Leafs affair. The Toronto Maple Leafs of the late 1980s had plenty of talent, including forward Gary Leeman and defenseman Al Iafrate. But their time together ended in chaos because of a personal scandal. Rumors spread that Leeman had an affair with Iafrate's wife, and the locker room quickly turned tense and uncomfortable. Some say Iafrate confronted Leeman directly, while others believe enforcer John Kordic stepped in for him. But something definitely happened. Surprisingly, instead of trading Leeman, who was allegedly at fault, the Leafs decided to trade Iafrate. Many fans and teammates felt it was the wrong choice since Iafrate was one of the best defensemen in the league. This story remains one of the clearest examples of how off-ice drama can ruin team chemistry and change the course of a player's career. Alexei Kasatonov versus Vyacheslav Fetisov, Soviet betrayal. Not all feuds start in the NHL. Some begin in international hockey. Alexei Kasatonov and Vyacheslav Fetisov were defensive partners for CSKA Moscow and the Soviet national team in the 1980s. On the ice, they were nearly perfect, reading each other's moves like they shared the same mind. But off the ice, politics got in the way. Fetisov wanted to leave the Soviet Union to play in the NHL, a risky and bold choice at the time. He was even threatened with being sent to Siberia if he didn't back down. Kasatonov didn't support him and allegedly reported Fetisov's plans to Soviet officials. The betrayal ended their friendship. When both finally reached the NHL, they played together again but reportedly didn't speak. Still, their on-ice chemistry remained. Fetisov later won the Stanley Cup with Detroit, and Kasatonov had a strong NHL career. Their story shows that some feuds aren't about ego. They're about loyalty, politics, and survival. Conclusion: winning in hockey doesn't always mean being friends. From Roenick's tension with Marleau, to Subban and Gallagher's fiery fights, to the Cold War-era clash between Kasatonov and Fetisov, these stories show one thing. You don't have to like your teammate to succeed. But it makes you wonder, did any of these feuds actually hurt their teams more than help them? Which rivalry do you think caused the most damage? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. And if you love uncovering hockey's wild side, like this video, subscribe to Pucknuts and hit the bell for more stories.